Hello and welcome to Castle for One Games. I am George Castle and today I'll be playing Nefer. Alright, welcome back to Nefer. This is part 2 of this solo playthrough. In my first video I played through Era 1 and 2. So if you want to get the basics of how we got here and more details of how each turn is played, I actually go into more of an explanation in those videos. This will be more of a speed through play. And then towards the end of the video, I'll go ahead and go through the final thoughts of the game itself. As usual, if you have any feedback or any rules that need to be called out, please make sure to add your comments below. All right, let's rock. All right, we are now entering the flood phase of Era 3. And the first thing we need to do is move up the narrator to Era 3 space, which is the final era of the game. And the next thing we need to do is receive our resources. So let's first get our fish. And because I have 2 boats that have surpassed these 2 symbols, I'm going to receive a total of 3 fish. Next, we're going to receive Heka from the obelisk. So that'll be 1 Heka. Next, we need to retrieve all of our apprentices back into our own boards. Then we need to move the neutral apprentice down their current spot 1 space. And now we need to refill our contracts from the river. Just got to make sure that we do add the value 3 contracts because it's Era 3. And there are currently only 2 spaces that I need to fill. And finally, we need to adjust our turn order. However, since I'm in 2nd place and Imhotep is leading in scoring, then we just need to remain the same turn order. And of course, we need to perform our reshuffle for the bot action tiles and get them ready for play. And now we need to move on to phase 2, which is sowing, and perform our actions again. All right, so we'll go ahead and start with Imhotep. So let's flip his first action tile and see what he's going to do next. All right, so we start off by placing an apprentice out into the House of Life. And as usual, we'll go ahead and place it here in the first space available. All right, for his next action, we will start by obtaining a permission of Khufu. And now we're going to get him his next craft. And since he doesn't like the same type that he already has on his board, we're going to go for this one. So this one will go on top. And there we go. And that will complete his actions. So now we need to take his tablet back to the discard pile, and that is the end of his turn. It's now back to me. All right, and now for the next turn, I'll go ahead and choose an apprentice to play. And I'm going to place it here because I want to start moving my scarab to a level 2 funerary rite action. All right, so for my first action, I'm getting a craft. And then we get to move a priestess up the temple and make an offering. And I'm going to start tilting these tiles so that I can remember that I'm still in the middle of an action. So let's go ahead and go with this free one, since it will provide me a papyrus. Let's go ahead and refill the market. So now I will add the new craft here, so I can get 2 rewards next time. All right, and now I can advance my priestess and make an offering. Let's go ahead and stand her up, and move her 1 space up to the next level. And I'll take this basket so I can get 2 rewards from this level 2 craft. So I'll get 2 Heka and get a papyrus. Since I don't have any papyrus right now, it doesn't matter which one I get. So I'll just go ahead and go with the free one. We'll place it on this free space. And now I'll take my rewards from this temple. So I'll move up the obelisk 2 spaces, which will now give me 6 points during the flood phase. And now I get my 2 hearts. And now let's go ahead and flip this craft, now that I've completed these actions. Let's send the completed tablet back to the discard pile. And that's the end of my turn. All right, it's back to Imhotep. And he's wanting to place out another apprentice back to back. And let's go ahead and perform his actions. So he ignores the fish, And we go straight to moving up the pyramid tracks twice. And because he has permissions, we're going to go ahead and move up the queen's pyramid track. All right, let's move up his 2 spaces. And this is going to trigger the next build action. And now he's going to come after me and try to match me on this objective. And this will allow him to build the last top for this pyramid. All right, this completes his actions. And now we'll place his tablet back to the discard pile. I'm going to go ahead and start by playing an apprentice. I'm going to go ahead and place it on this space, which is going to cost me a fish. But I do want to get some more Sphinx out there, so it'll be worth it. This one will let me gain a papyrus. And since I don't have any active mummies, I'll go ahead and perform an embalm action. All right, let's get this mummy ready for its sarcophagus. This one is matching this symbol for my papyrus. All right, that's going to cost me another heka just to place it here, but at least I'll match my papyrus. That'll get me an extra feather. So we'll spend the 2 heka, one for getting the papyrus and the other for placing the papyrus. All right, there's my fish for the placement. And now I'll discard my tablet. It's back to Imhotep. All right, it's back to Imhotep. And this turn, he's going to specialize an apprentice. And let's go to the first one that my meeple is on. So let's go ahead and move his scarab, which means he will play the funerary rite action. So let's go ahead and roll the die, and let's see which mastaba area he's going to place it. And he's going for space number 3. Since we're in the 3rd era, he would place it on this column. This will give him 3 hearts. All right, there's his 3 hearts. And that's the end of his turn. All right, it's back to me. And I'm going to play my last apprentice out to the House of Life. And I'm going to go ahead and place it here. And I'll pay my fish. And the action I'm going to play next is to move 3 of my boats. And I get to activate once. And we'll move this boat up 3 spaces into this city. And we'll activate this city and go with this contract. This contract just requires 2 permissions out into the Queen's Pyramid, and I only need 1 more. And now I'm going to activate the city bonus tile, and this will allow me to move up on the obelisk. And now that my orb has reached this space, I will get 2 heka during the floods phase. And now let's go ahead and place this boat in this space following the arrow. Unfortunately, it's going to push my boat back 1 space. And since it's the end of my turn, I'll go ahead and discard this tablet. All right, it's back to Imhotep. And it looks like he's going to go for a tablet. And he's looking for a tablet that has this duck symbol. And he'll take this one. So now he gets to move his counter and get a point. And now since he took the first tablet on the market, that will trigger this bonus action from his tile, which will be to obtain a papyrus. And he's going to be looking for my next drawing, since he doesn't have any papyrus. And sure enough, there's 2 of them in the market. But of course, he always goes for the cheaper one, which is going to be this one for free. There we go. He gets his papyrus. And that's the end of his turn. All right, the turn is back to me. And since I don't have any more tablets, I'm going to go ahead and specialize first. And I'll go ahead and place it here. And that's going to cost me 1 fish. And I will take advantage of this action, which will allow me to have a Khufu favor. And I get to move 3 spaces up the pyramid track. And next I'm going to get a Khufu favor. And I'm going to choose to get my fish. And now I have 2 again. So I have the 3 spaces, but I'm going to use 2 of them to move up the Great Pyramid track. And now I get to build. We continue on level 3. So I'll go ahead and get this one, which will get me another feather. And now another fish. So now I'm up to 3 fish. And here's my feather. And I still have 1 more move left. So I'm going to move 1 space down the Queen's Pyramid track. And that's the end of my turn. All right, now it's Imhotep's turn, and he's going to specialize. So let's go ahead and move him over. Now let's go ahead and move his scarab over 1 more space. and he's going to obtain a permission and move 2 spaces up the Queen's Pyramid track. So let's give him his permission first. And now we're going to move his limestone up the track. And we get to activate this build action. Imhotep prefers to complete an already built pyramid, so he's going to go to this top one. And we'll complete this pyramid. And that's the end of his specialized action. And now let's go ahead and get some tablets on my board. And I'll get this one, which will provide me a fish. All right, here we go. And here's my fish. And the action for taking this tablet is going to be to gain a Heka. Here's my Heka, and that's the end of my turn. All right, it's back to Imhotep. And he's going to try to specialize again, but he doesn't have any available apprentice. So let's go ahead and place this back. And this time he's going to get a tablet back onto his board. He's looking for the squiggly line symbols to match his track. And the only one available is the topmost tablet. All right, so we'll go ahead and place the tablet here. And then let's go ahead and move his counter on his track, which is going to give him another point. And now, because he took the topmost tablet from the market, he's going to perform the action on top of his tile, which is to move a priestess up 2 spaces on the temple. And Imhotep prefers to move his most advanced priestess up as many spaces as he can. In this case, this priestess will move up to this room. All right, let's go ahead and roll the die and see which row he will place his next basket. And it looks like it will be on row number 3. In this room, which will be next to me. And the basket he chooses will be the second row, since that'll give him 2 rewards from this craft. Let's go ahead and take those. Now it looks like he will get to place a mummy into the active side. In other words, an embalm action. And it will give him 2 hearts. There we go. Now let's go ahead and make an offering. And remember, it was the 3rd row next to mine. So we'll go ahead and move his orb up 2 spaces on the obelisk. And even though he landed on this deity symbol, Imhotep doesn't get any deity rewards. And he also ignores the Heka during the flood phase. All right, let's reset the market. And that's the end of his turn. All right, it's back to me, and I'm going to specialize. All right, I'm going to choose to move this one over, and that's going to cost me 1 fish. And I'll be able to place my sarcophagus onto a level 2 area in the necropolis. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to place it here in this area, and that's going to give me 1 Heka and 4 hearts. So let's move my hearts first, and my 1 Heka. And now, because I have my sarcophagus on level 2 Mustafa area, I get to activate either one of these Mastaba tiles, or 1 Mastaba tile twice. And I'm going to choose to gain 2 Heka from this Mastaba tile. All right, now I have 5. And for my second activation, I'm going to choose to move up the pyramid track. And I'll go up the Queen's track and build on another pyramid since I have this permission. And we'll go with this scoring objective since I've been building on contracts as well. And that's the end of my turn. All right, it's back to Imhotep. And it looks like he's going to play his last apprentice. And he's going to place it next to me. Let's go ahead and tilt this because I'm starting to forget which one it was. And the first action is going to be to erect a sphinx. All right, let's roll the die and see which area we will place it on. And it looks like it will be on area number 1. And since it's area 3, we will have to place it on this level 3 space. That means he will get a chance to embalm a mummy first, although the order doesn't really matter. All right, let's take his sarcophagus out to the necropolis. Let's go ahead and roll the die, and it's going to be area number 6. Which means it will be on level 3 column, and that's going to get him 4 hearts. So let's give him his 4 hearts. Next, we're going to go back to this space, and reward him his 3 hearts and his 3 feathers. Next, we need to give him 2 spaces up the pyramid track, and since he doesn't have any permissions left, we'll go ahead and move him over. And let's go ahead and discard this tablet. And that's the end of his turn. All right, it's back to me. And I'm going to go ahead and get another tablet on my board. And I'm going to get this one, since it matches my track, but it will cost me 3 fish. And since these 2 match, I get to move up 1 more space, and I get 1 more point. And this will give me 2 steps up the Great Pyramid track. And that's the end of my turn. All right, it's back to Imhotep, and he's going to get a tablet. And he's going to be looking for this symbol, and it's the 3rd one. And since they match, he moves up 1 more space on his track, and he gets 1 more point. And since he took the 3rd tile, he's going to move up 1 of his boats and activate 1. He always moves his boat that has been moved the furthest, which means it'll be this one, and we're going to move it towards this city. And now he'll activate that city and get this contract. And then he'll get a heart. And that's the end of his turn. And now for my next turn, I'm going to specialize. And I'm going to specialize now before Imhotep makes it more expensive, especially since I don't have any more fish left. Now let's move this scarab over. And now I get to get a craft and erect a sphinx to a level 1 spot. So first, let's get a craft. And since I have no fish, it's going to be this free one. And let's place it here. And next, we're going to move over our sphinx out to the main board. And let's go with a level 1 space here. So we're going to go ahead and embalm first. I'm going to get a papyrus that matches my drawing, which is this free one. And finally, I'm going to get a mastaba tile. And I'm going to go with this one and move up the Great Pyramid track. And I now get to build. And I'm going to go with this Heka. And gain a heart. There's my heart. There's my Heka. And now we have completed all of the actions from this space. And that's the end of my turn. All right, it's back to Imhotep. And for his last turn, he's going to obviously specialize. And of course, he will specialize this one. And fortunately for me, I've already moved before he could get to it. And then we're going to move his scarab up 1 more space. And now he's going to move his sphinx. However, since he doesn't have a sphinx to send out, he's going to have to just carve instead. And that's fine by me. And that's the end of his turn. Not the most exciting finish for him, but it will happen to players just the same. All right, it's back to me. And for my final turn, I'm obviously going to get my last tile back. And I'm going to go look for one that matches this symbol. And I'll get this one since it matches the one that's on my track. All right, since those 2 match, I'm going to move up 1 more space and get 1 more point. And there's my point. And I'll go with a papyrus on my bonus action. So let's go ahead and go with this one for free. All right, that's going to be 3 Heka just to place it. And unfortunately, that is the end of my turn. And that is the end of the game. And now I'm going to move on to the last harvest phase of the game. All right, it's time for the harvest phase of Era 3, the last era. So let's go ahead and start with the papyrus. And we'll start with Imhotep. All right, he only has 1 papyrus, so he's only going to get 1 feather. And now we'll go ahead and roll these up and discard them. All right, now as for me, I have 4. But because I have 2 that match, I actually will end up with 6 feathers. So we'll go ahead and get my 6 feathers. Now it's time to count the Duat. So Imhotep ended up with 4 points, and I'm going to get 2 points. And now we're going to go with the contracts. I'm going to start with Imhotep. It is the 3rd era, so we will flip this one over. And now he has 8 points. All right, and so since I ended up with 2 of my permissions out at the pyramid, I'm going to be able to flip this one over. And now I ended up with 8 points. Next, we're going to move to the necropolis. Remember, we're going to get points based on which mastaba tiles cross our sarcophagus. So Imhotep will get 1 point from this one, and 2 points from this one. So this sarcophagus ended up with 3 points. Now, for each of these, it's 2 points each. So that'll be 6 points. Fortunately, most of them went to 0. Imhotep ended up with a total of 9 points. And next is my turn, and we're going to count these 2. Both of these will have 0 from this side, unfortunately, but each one will get 2 points from these. So I'll have 4 points altogether. And now next we're going to go on to the obelisk. Imhotep will receive 4 points, and I'll receive 6. And lastly, we're going to move on to the pyramid scoring. And I'm going to score 8, and Imhotep will score 10. So now it's 57 to 81. And finally, we're going to score from the Queen's Pyramid track. As mentioned, Imhotep gets 4 points for each one of those permissions he has out. So that's going to be a total of 12 points. So now it's 93 points to beat. I'm going to score for each pair of papyrus, and I went ahead and laid them out here at the bottom. 1 for each pair. I only have 4 pairs, so that'll be 4 points. And finally, for this objective, I get 1 point for each pair of contracts. I have 2 pairs, so that'll be 2 points. And there's the score, 63 to 93. And that is our largest gap so far. And of course, this happens when I'm filming. Now let's go ahead and move on to final thoughts. Welcome to Final Thoughts. And if you ended up watching the entire playthrough of Nefer, then you know how long this game can take. Of course, I'm filming, so I had to do some edits to make it even a bit shorter. But on average, it will take me about an hour and a half to play through this. And maybe I'm just slow, or I did suffer through some analysis paralysis at times. But I suppose that's the advantage of playing solo. No one is rushing you, and you have time to kind of plan out your own turns and figure out the best strategic way to play it. Now, there is something unique about this game. There's a feel to this game that I haven't experienced in quite some time, and that is, even though it takes me some time to finish the game, it doesn't feel that long to me. In other words, I'm so immersed in the game, in my turns and the theme, that I'm not paying attention to the time. And the game does not overstay its welcome. So let's talk about the theme. Now, personally, I'm the type of player that it doesn't take much to make me feel like there's a theme in a game. I know it's a Euro game, and they can be difficult to find theme in them sometimes. Sometimes they just feel like they're pasted on. But there are times where the art is so well embedded into the game, like this one, that it does welcome you into their world, right? Other games can be boring, bland, not interesting, and you're just blinded by the mechanics. But this one is very well balanced. So let's talk about the components. Again, the art is beautiful. I love the Egyptian theme anyway, so I'm automatically drawn to the board. And I'm absolutely drawn to Luda Nova. I feel like they had a love letter to us solo players in that they offer a double-sided board, one side specifically for us solo players. I hope more publishers start thinking outside the box like this and start to invite more players from all counts. But anyway, the components make it welcoming, and it's just, there's so many good things about the game that I really love. Now, on the downside, some of these components are small. I have big hands, so it is challenging to grab some of these pieces at times, especially the scarab, the fish, and the heka. Don't get me wrong, I appreciate adding shapes to them, but they're just way too small. Although I think one remedy that might have helped was adding a dual layer player board, so that way they don't get bumped around too much. Not a big deal, just a small observation. The pyramid pieces, for some reason, were just as difficult for me to maneuver. Now, I understand it's a different design, but I'm just comparing the size of the pieces and the form. So I'm not sure how that could have been incorporated into this game. I just wish there would have been an easier way to build these pyramids. Again, not a big deal. It doesn't take away from the experience of the game at all. So overall, I feel like this one would be one of the best games of the year. So I felt so strongly about the way this game played that I thought it would be a great idea to share this with others that might benefit from it as well. And I don't think you have to like heavy Euro games to be able to appreciate this one as much as I do. This one does have a lot of layers to it. There's so many different paths to victory and so many different combinations that you can make that it just makes you feel very focused on what you're doing, and at the same time have a great time doing it. And each time I've played it, I've wanted to try something different. I've learned something else about the game, and now I want to try again. And there's just so many different varieties to this game that it really opens itself up for you to play around and be creative with it. But overall, it was relatively easy to learn, so the rulebook was very well written. Now, I think the solo mode rulebook may need a couple of adjustments only because there were some ambiguity to some of the solo moves, but overall it was very well written. It was manageable. So let's jump into the solo experience. I would consider this a medium level solo bot because there's minimal maintenance and there's clear directions overall. You're not having to spend so much time worrying about the bot, and it leaves you enough time for you to worry about your own moves. You flip a tile and you follow the directions. That's it. Some moves will take 5 seconds, other will take 5 minutes, just because there's so many combos. I think this one will make the top list of next year's People Choice for solo games, or at least I hope it does. I know I'll be voting for it. All right, so what are some concerns? What are some thoughts that I can think of that might give pause to someone for getting this game or wanting to play it? Well, if you're someone that doesn't enjoy long played out games, don't have the time or don't have the patience, this game will feel heavy, in the sense that there are just so many layers upon layers of combinations and different ways to play them that you'll spend more time and then worrying about so many different things that you can do at the same time that you might not end up having a good time after all. Especially if you're playing with someone or a group of players that suffer from analysis paralysis. You will be at the table for 2 or 3 hours depending on the player count. It may be hard to bring this one out to the table. You may end up feeling exhausted or overwhelmed or burnt out that you may not want to play it again for a while. Now, don't get me wrong, there are some games it's worth having one at least like this in your collection. Like, you want a game that's a brain burner. You'll play it, and then you will want to sit it out for a while. And that's okay. You have another easier game to play with next time. But just be on the lookout that this is not going to be one of those games that you can just bring out to the table and easily or quickly show someone how to play it, and then you're off to the races. This one will take some time to wrap your head around, and some of your friends or opponents may not want to do that. But overall, this game has really met my expectations of a medium-heavy Euro game. This is not a Vita Lacerda type game. I don't think it's that heavy, say for example like a Lisboa. I just got Inventions too, and that one's going to take me some time to learn. So this one's not going to be that level. It'll be just enough that if you want to play it again, it won't take that much time to relearn it again. So do you need to buy Sabika if you don't have Nefer or vice versa? I don't think so. But they are different enough to where you're not going to feel like you have a duplicate game. I think you're going to have 2 different experiences altogether. One is not better than the other, although there are some things that I prefer one from the other, but that's just my personal taste. I think the feel and the experience is going to be unique to each one. So I highly recommend getting both. But again, that's just my opinion. All right, and then they are both very similar in the solo mechanic, in that the solo interactions are very well laid out. They're easy to manage, they're both very clear to play, and they give you enough challenge and enough play that it makes the game that much funner. I don't think a beat your own score would have given this game enough value, and a heavy managed solo bot would have taken away from the simplicity in your turns and your experience. So Herman has done an amazing job, not just on the main game design itself, but he took it to another level in saying, hey, I can get my solo players involved just as much as any other player account without inundating them with so many bot moves and rules. And it's great that the solo bot didn't need to cheat either. I mean, there were some times where it was easier, but I like the way that it still has to fight for every move, just like you do. And the way it follows you and keeps you on the edge, I love it. Anyway, these are my final thoughts. I really appreciate you watching this video. I hope it's been helpful, and even through all my mistakes. But that's it for me. Until our next board game adventure, hope you had a great time with this one.